Welcome to Mojo Talks, where we explore the world through stories. I'm Mayur Channagere, visual storyteller and your host. Welcome to another episode of Mojo Talks with Mayur Channagere. Today we have Ramesh Balasundaram, an organizational catalyst. Ramesh was a former consultant to Karnataka Knowledge Commission, Government of Karnataka, which was instituted under Dr. Kasturi Rangan. Binu works as an external member of Internal Complaints Committee, which predominantly works around prevention of sexual harassments in organizations. Recently, she has been awarded with the Karnataka Women's Leaders Award for 2024 by Government of Karnataka. And together, they started Bal Utsav in 2009. Ramesh and Binu, welcome to our talk. And it's so nice to have you guys.
Thank you so much for having us over.
Thank you so much for having us over. Thank you.
And this is something which we were talking earlier, right? It's been a long due conversation. We've been talking about your journey. And interestingly, the way we met itself is a story in of sorts, right? We met at a coffee shop in Java City, and the old Bangaloreans will remember that. And it was thanks to Dinesh, where we didn't realize that both of us were waiting for Dinesh, and you guys had just started Bal Utsav. So before we get into the journey of Bal Utsav and how it started, tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Mayur. I've spent some time. I'm somebody who was born and brought up in Bangalore. Spent some time working with the corporate world. Ended up realizing that what I was doing was great, but I wanted to do something a little more than that. And incidentally, when I happened to meet Binu online, the idea of wanting to do something bigger than ourselves and something more purpose-driven germinated there. The idea of Bal Utsav was born there, really. And we got to spend a little time putting together what we could do in what is otherwise called as the NGO world, as people more popularly know it, but what I would perhaps call as the for-purpose world. Right, where we are not driven by profits, but by purpose. And like your introduction said, also ended up having a good stint with the government and working with various governments. So a good combination of being able to work and draw strength from what the corporate world has, the empathy and the passion that the for-purpose world has, and understanding the bureaucracy and the complexities of what the government has. So that's like in a nutshell of what I do.
Awesome.
All right. First of all, thank you so much for having both of us together on this show. Very, very important. Not separately.
Well, I mean, you have to be together, otherwise you're not complete.
So about me, yes, name is Binu Verma. I am from Delhi, born and brought up there. My entire family is in Delhi as we talk right now. I happened to come to Bangalore after I tied the knot with Ramesh in 2009. And since then, there has been no looking back to Delhi. Bangalore, I would say 85% of the heart lies in Bangalore now. 15% is still back in Delhi.
And once you're a Bangalorean, you're always a Bangalorean.
You're always a Bangalorean, especially for the masala dosas.
Yes.
So, being in Bangalore, tying the knot with Ramesh, very fortunate enough to be here. And the whole idea of Bal Utsav germinated, as Ramesh mentioned, when we were courting each other. So, after tying the knot, prior to that, we both had quit our corporate jobs. And that was a shocker for the family. When we came down to Bangalore, we started Bal Utsav. For them, it was very difficult to digest from both the ends. You know, being a Punjabi, hardcore Punjabi back there in Delhi, and then a new culture for me, South India over here. But it took time for me to adjust, certainly yes. However, with respect to Bal Utsav, it was, I would say initially it was an overwhelming journey for us, very new to the space. But the whole, now it is very satisfying, I would say. It's been good 15 years into the space, working with children and being together, working for a certain cause, especially which is education, makes me in person feels very proud of what I'm doing. It may sound a little cliched, but It's more like not having a child of our own is not a hindrance to what we are doing right now. I think we are able to reach out to many more children across the globe, and that was a conscious decision that we made. So the journey has been beautiful so far. We are looking forward to make more, accomplish more milestones in the near future. So Bangalore is home now, and
Awesome.
looking forward to expanding our wings under Bal Utsav to various parts of the country. Yes.
So, just going back to your coaching days, or you guys basically met while you were working with America Online back then, and both of you in the same team.
No, so both were in the learning and development space.
Okay.
I used to curate an online community of trainers, and that's where I first met Binu. So we had met about twice before we shocked our family announcing our marriage.
Wow,
and,
that was quick.
That was quick. Yeah.
So I think the best way to describe you guys is a North and South cocktail.
Absolutely.
It is.
Absolutely. And post our wedding, just in 3 months of time, there was this book which was released. It was, I'm not going to name the author right now, but it was about a couple, one from North and the other from South. And a lot of, the excerpts of the book were a resonation to what we had gone through in the 2 years of our coaching, and then convincing our families so that we can come together. So
I know which book you're talking about.
And we consciously ensured that we give a copy of that book to every family member
Member
of
of
ours.
ours, yeah.
And
So
we did
it's
that.
kind of an initiation.
Yes, we did that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, Binu coming from North and Ramesh coming from being from South, culturally, how difficult was it for you, Binu? Let's start with you. I mean,
Yeah.
me being a South Indian, so.
Yeah. So, Mayur, to be candid, for us back in North, with due respect, we have not been introduced to the culture, the South Indian culture. What we know is what
Anything
I
down
knew
south is Madras.
is Madras,
Correct.
with due respect.
Yeah.
However, after coming down to Bangalore and understanding that there is more to it beyond Chennai and Madras,
Yeah.
in literally, there is, you have not only the masala dosa, but the entire meal on a plantain leaf. No, beyond that, jokes apart, it was a cultural shock for me. It was certainly, yes, but in a very positive way. And I'm not going to brag about myself, but I did take everything with open arms. And I love it. I certainly love it. I have learned a lot here, not only from the family, but the friends that I have made here.
Correct.
And you are a part of the family friend, zone. So language, yes, was a barrier, but now I can sit through an entire conversation and even a movie, whether it is Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam,
Wow.
or Kannada.
Nice.
Translation has to be there.
No, but you're able to resonate. And
I
I'm sure at some point there's similarities in culture as well, right?
Yes.
There are a lot of traditions, especially for example, if you look at weddings, we might call them by different names, but the rituals are very similar.
Absolutely.
Right? And of course, the core values across Bharat is
It's
the same, right? And yeah, awesome. Ramesh, I've been told many times that, when we go for meetings or something, interestingly, one thing that they say is don't be that humble South Indian, be the aggressive North Indian. So, from that perspective, what do you think?
No, I think there are a lot of similarities. There are some differences for sure. Like we may call things differently, but the essence of both cultures pretty much remain the same.
Correct.
The way we approach it is slightly different. Food is a big change from what we do to what we see out there. Numbers are very, very different. I recollect one of the ceremonies during our wedding when I asked what is the ceremony all about, and I was told that hey, it's a small family get together, and my understanding was okay, a few people are going to be out there. That's what I informed our family members, And when we got down there, we had about 400 people dancing away, right? So
No, let me just
after
add,
the
sorry,
event,
we had to cut short the relatives.
Oh,
We didn't
oh
call
wow.
everyone for that event.
That's a close circle.
That's the closest.
so after the event, I went back and I said, I thought you said this was a very small family event. She said, yeah, it is a very small family event, right? So for us, 400 is a large gathering, right?
Yeah.
Whereas for them, 400 is a very small family gathering. So that way, the yardsticks are very different. But I think that's the whole charm, to be able to embrace that and understand that there's a very different world out there, and a world that I like.
And you guys met Bal Utsav, the idea of Bal Utsav germinated, and then you started working on towards it. What was your initial process? Because you were getting into a space which at that point was relatively unknown, isn't it? And if you could share a bit about that journey.
When we first started this idea saying we need to do something more purposeful than what we were doing back then, the government of India, the Planning Commission, the erstwhile Planning Commission of India had put out some data. And we were quite bowled over when we looked at it because at that point of time, we were given to understand that India had about 3.3 million NGOs, right? So 33 lakh NGOs for about 100 crore people back then basically meant that there was an NGO for every 400 people in the country at that point of time, right?
Wow.
So that kind of was both exciting and disturbing at the same time, because no problem seems to be history, right? The only problem that we can relatively talk about where we've had reasonable success is, let's say, the polio campaign. And there is a debate on whether polio is behind us or we are near to being able to eradicate it. But long and short of it, no other problem, be it hunger, be it education, be it healthcare, be it environment, are all anywhere close to being solved. The interesting part is there doesn't even exist a date by which most people are trying to solve this. It's okay even if you say I'm going to do this in 30 years, 50 years, 100 years, fair enough. And it started by saying it's disturbing to know that you've got the government, the private sector, and the for-purpose sector all trying to solve the same problem without an end goal in mind.
And they were not working in tandem.
They're not working in tandem.
Or sorry, rather, they were not working together, but
they were not complementing each other, and we were not
other.
looking at the same direction, right? So one of the first things we started was by saying, can we perhaps just transform the life of 400 people, right? If each one decides to work with 400 people and transform the life of 400 people, at least that was the count back then, we said we'll pretty much have solved this. And then if you can make that a reproducible model, everybody adopts or works with 400 people, taking care of all their needs. It could be a multidimensional intervention, but it's a finite number of people that we need to work with, and that's all we need to get started.
And it's a easily scalable
model, right? So that's where our initial thoughts really came from. Right? Said, is that a way we can solve it? The second part of it was to understand that while most people were not starting with the end in mind, which is what I first spoke about, the second part of it was, are these solutions that are being put together scalable and reproducible? So today we may want to do this with 400 people, but if this has to go to over 4,000 or a 400,000, is this solution reproducible and is it scalable, right? That was the next part. And the idea of Bal Utsav really perhaps germinated there, because we said if we want to solve a problem, we possibly need to start by working with the largest sector or number of people out there, and India has the largest number of children in the world, right? We said, can we start therefore by working with today's children to solve tomorrow's problems, right? And that's where the whole idea germinated from. So from taking a look at the sector per se, to being able to get down to saying, let's start working with children, because otherwise the problem exists. The problem possibly gets much bigger, and then we are trying to fix it, whereas let's start fixing it even before the problem blows out of proportion. Right? That's where the idea of that was part two of the problem, that we identified the focus group, that where we typically work. What do you do with the focus group, right? Highest number of schools in the world, India. Where are all the children? In schools. So we said, can we start working with children in schools And while that's where the exercise really began, then we said, can we start working on the schools itself? Because that's where the change can possibly come from. Schools are agents of change. The bulk of India goes to schools. And can we reimagine those schools? So in about 3 tiers, we moved from looking at the sector to identifying the focus group to then pretty much putting a finger on where we could go out and bring about tangible change, and that's where we were able to narrow down to
also the approach that you took was slightly different, right? Whereas typically it is like, okay, I'm going to work with schools, then not for profit typically get into it. They get stuck with one particular model of, I'm going to fix the bags, I'm going to fix the school, I'm going to fix it. But you guys took a slightly different approach of working with the government, where you said, okay, give us the infrastructure, then you started working with the corporates and saying, okay, we need the manpower. That's a slightly different model compared to what many people do.
It is. So, and it was fairly conscious, right? Because of the size of the problem itself, right? So India at last count has about 1.5 million schools, right? The highest number of schools in the world. And if we want to go out and fix this, we said this can't be done by one person alone, right? It's not. And a part of the problem is, as we speak right now, most people think somebody else has to fix it. The government thinks the private sector has to fix it using CSR funds. The private sector thinks that it's a government school, let the government run it. Organizations say, hey, I have finite resources, so how am I going to be able to take it? But the way to solve this is to be able to unite and supplement existing efforts, right? For the government to come together and offer what they can, for the corporates to come together and offer what they can, and for organizations to be able to go out and solve, because that's why we exist in the first place, right? So the ability to unite and supplement existing efforts, bring the resources together, because what we would like to do is to fix the education crisis in this lifetime, right? So the whole approach is, if we do what we're doing, we hope in the next 30 years, hopefully we'll live to see that, we should be able to fix the public education system in the country.
And while bringing all these together, the other thing that you guys have effectively worked or managed to get is the community together, especially in the rural space, right? Like Shimoga, earlier you were sharing the story of how the entire village came for the opening of one project. You want to share something about that experience?
Yeah, certainly, yes. See, Mayur, it is a two-edged sword, you know. You can't work without having the community be a part of the school. And you can't have the school function without the community. So you have to have all the coins come together, and then only you'll be able to build a structure. So for us, it was all the more important because, see, technically the land belongs to the community most of the time, right? And also they are looking forward to see their children come up in life, right? If let's suppose there is a farmer, I'm not saying the farmer's child should not be a farmer. They can be a farmer, but they should not be deprived of good education. So all the more we were so welcomed when we spoke to them first. You know, we spoke to the panchayat head. We told them this is what our model is. Our model is not about just giving bags. Correct. It is about coming together and working in its entirety, you know. Giving them a place where the child, if they are studying in first standard, and when they come out in 10th standard or 12th standard, you know, there is an entire process which is set up for them.
Correct.
That is what we were looking for, and they were excited to be a part of it. Like our model says that we will stay in a school or in an area for a minimum of 3 to 5 years. That is what we look forward to. And it's not that we want to exit the school, but also, you know, there are certain challenges which are there. However, couple of schools where we have moved out after 5 years, and we still see that the communities have taken over. There are individuals like who are not a part of the village, or they're not staying there physically, and they are in the US or they are in some other part of the globe. Those individuals have come forward and they are supporting their school, their community. So that is how we are trying to build in a structure, whether we are there or not. As Ramesh mentioned, you know, it is not an individual's or only Bal Utsav cannot come forward and solve this issue. We need more and more hands and people coming together.
And also by doing so, you're kind of giving them a leg up, isn't it? So you're kind of saying, okay, you've been working on it. It's not that you're alien to it. It's maybe you need a bit of a structure.
Yes.
And the structure, the way you're putting it is that you're training them, giving them a guidelines which can be replicated, and with the community coming up, because I remember, again, I'm going back to the Shimoga story because that's something which we have seen from scratch, the way the whole thing was transformed. We saw parents coming there, being part of the meetings, discussing, and also empowering them to pick their own vendors, for example, right? In terms of fixing the infrastructure, giving them that gives them the sense of ownership and say, oh, it's not some Shehri Babu coming and giving us gyan, but getting us to do it. And we could clearly see the impact of that, which is, I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned there. Any personal stories or experiences that you would like to share?
Oh, quite a lot actually. But I think just to add to what Binu says, our focus largely has been in terms of being able to bring back public participation in public schools, right? Like I said, for far too long, everybody has thought that somebody else needs to come and fix the problem, right? And the large focus has been to be able to come back and get public participation into public schools. Number one. The other thing that we look at is for schools to be an agent of change. So when we fix a school, right, you are also fixing behavioral issues at the school. We are fixing cultural issues at the school. The ability to get a girl to come and be in school all 30 days of the month. The ability to provide the mothers in the school cultural context of why it's okay for the girls to come to school. The ability for them to be able to come and pick up menstrual hygiene supplies from the school, right? So we're making the school a fountainhead of change, of hope and inspiration, right? And I think that's important to being able to bring back public participation into private school.
You, over the last 15 years, you have kind of, I would say, evolved. I wouldn't say you have figured out, but you have evolved in the model of how things can be done. But many NGOs, many partners, NPOs, they still struggle. They always start off with the josh of doing something, and then it fizzles out. What is the main reason? Why does the motivation come down at some point?
Solving these problems are complex, number one, right? And many a times when they start, there is a reason why they've started. But more often than not, they quickly move from why they started to what needs to get delivered, right? I think the ability to keep your focus on the why and why we exist needs to be important. I think our own Itihas has enough learnings for us from there, right? There is a lot of distraction. There is a lot of noise. There are moving parts of the puzzle, but to keep your focus on the bird's eye is what is important. And that's what we will need to get to. And I'm referring to Arjuna and Mahabharata in this case. While all of what I'm talking about exists, the focus needs to continue to remain on why we started, right? Not that we exist, but why we exist.
But also, Ramesh, when we start, right, with the focus, even we might continue with the focus, but then somewhere we move into operations. And that's where most of our time goes, right? You might have a grand vision board, but then when you get to the grassroots, the reality is so different from what you would have visualized. And once you get into the operations is when everything goes haywire. One, like you said, would be getting the community together. Second would be creating awareness about the issue. Third, and a major chunk, would be fundraising, right? That applies to everyone, right? As long as your bank balance is good, you have the josh, you have the focus, everything. The minute it starts depleting, your mind goes in a twirl, right? So, but from a fundraising perspective, I know you actively work on fundraising for us. What should be the approach?
Right. So, Mayur, personally, when I seek for funds for our cause, the focus is education and the focus is children. That is what I personally look into. And we have been fortunate enough, starting from 2009, it was friends and family who first came forward and supported us, and then gradually corporates started coming forward, and then we became global, and then we have a lot of Indian diaspora who come forward and support us. Now, see, I believe is that there is no set format for fundraising.
Correct.
You will have to tweak it. based on the situation, the circumstances, and people as well at times. People are not shying away from supporting you. They are there to support you. You have to look at the right person at the right time. That's what it is. And if your cause is genuine, you have shown work on ground, and they have seen it, the proof is there, they will come forward and support it. And I'm very emotional about it. I'm an emotional person.
I know.
I may look for logic at a certain short span of time, but then I go back to my emotional self. I don't emotionally blackmail anybody.
Except Ramesh.
Except Ramesh, yeah. When I have to ask for ice cream and various other things. But fundraising is a serious topic. It is required for every individual. See, whether it is a corporate or an NGO, we need money to sustain ourselves. And if we are working for a cause, we need hands to sustain ourselves. We need people on ground. We have to support them as well. But when you are looking for an individual to support you, you need to showcase your work on ground. That is very, very important. Show that you started working, why you're working, you're following your process, and at the end of the day, what is the outcome and what is the impact of it. It takes time. It is a long journey. But you have to keep on asking people, telling them you're doing some good work on ground. That is my motto as an individual. And as you said, yes, I have been fortunate enough to gather support, not only with respect to money that is coming into the kitty, but in kind individuals like you who started supporting us and
I know, we
created
did the first video
for
shoot.
Bal Utsav. And that's how it's been.
And today we are here doing our first group podcast.
Yes.
So you guys have been lucky for me. So
Likewise. Yeah. So there are a lot of rule books there. You can take excerpts from it, learn, logic, a process has to be set up. At the end of the day, how you connect with individuals and your cause.
Ramesh, again, earlier we were talking about, right? I mean, the same topic of fundraising. Earlier, one of our conversations that we had was, let's say you have a project and you have a budget, and you start with that and say, I need X amount. Once that X amount is met, then you get into operations. And that's where, again, I've seen a lot of them falter, because then you get into operations, you forget that there's a project or the next phase of it, and you stop raising funds. And is that a common scenario everywhere?
It's quite common. So there are 2 or 3 ways of looking and understanding at this, right? Number one is understanding fundraising itself slightly better, and I would like to touch upon that, right? How would I define fundraising, really? Fundraising is an opportunity to be able to get people to fund the world they want to live in, right? So rather than going out and telling them that, hey, this is what I'm doing, I want you to put money in, saying, hey, there is a problem that exists, there is a way that it can be solved. Would you like to join hands with me in solving the problem? So it's a minor tweak to the lens through which we are solving it, but that's a good start point.
Make it their purpose.
Yes, it is our purpose, right? The problem is here for all of us to see. And if you would like to play a role in solving this problem together, hey, there is a solution that we have, right? Is number one. The second piece is the art and science of fundraising, right? So there is a structure, there is a skeletal that exists, right? And that need not be reinvented. It's out there. But the ability to constantly keep doing that, while many people will keep saying no, right? This is not to say that it's easy, but it's very important that we know that it's urgent and it's critical. So you may hear a 90 no's, but there are a 10 yeses, right? And to wake up the next morning and go back and find the next yes, where somebody says, great, I want to support you, tell me how much do you need, right? Is where the focus needs to be, right? So to answer your question, really, is it easy? No, but I don't think anybody here has come in because they realize it's easy, right? It's only when you say you start and at one point of time you move out of the whole mode and say, you know what, now I want it to be easy. This is not the space for it.
So the key thing there is that you got to motivate yourself and keep at it. And what is the secret? I know you guys have a fabulous routine. You start early in the morning, when most of us are going to bed, you're up. I want you guys to touch on that a bit,
It was not the same when I was in Delhi. It was completely different. I would be going for a wedding at 12 o'clock at night and he'll be sleeping here in Bangalore. So that's how the time zone was earlier. No, but yes, a valid question.
So how do you keep yourself motivated?
See, Mayur, there is another aspect to our lives as well. And I can proudly say that, spirituality has brought in a lot of, I would say, a disciplined routine in our life. And I'm not saying religiously, praying every day in the morning and you do see a kumkum on my forehead, that's a ritual now. But spirituality, when I say it is about connecting with what we are doing at present and looking forward to bringing that change. Every day.
Yeah.
That is what we look forward to.
It's in a way inner strength.
It is
finding your inner strength.
Yes. It hasn't come in, or it wasn't there when we started. It is evolving. It is coming in. So waking up at 4 in the morning and doing our routine, which is our yoga practices, and then hitting the office by 6:37, so that we can work in a specified or stipulated time period with full energy and zeal. That is what we're looking forward to.
Correct.
That is what it is. Every day telling ourselves we have a target to reach. The number of children in India are XYZ, and we need to keep working on it. But spirituality has played a very, very important role in our life.
I love what you said, Binu. It's spirituality need not be doing the pujas, getting up, everything. It's something much more deeper. It's about finding your inner strength, consciously working towards something, and that is something which evolves. I don't want to go into the Gyan mode of saying, get up in the morning, read. No, but it comes over a period of time. It's something which you realize, right? And fabulous. How do you guys manage conflict between the two of you? As, again, the reason why I'm asking this question is it's been spoken about a lot, especially when couples work together. You tend to take work home and home to work. How do you manage that?
I'll let him answer that question.
With us, I don't think there is any line. It's not like, the line is blurred. There is just no line, right? It's 24/7 of working together at home, at work. So I would take on from where Binu left and say, as long as we can keep our focus on why we are doing this, right? And just realign ourselves each time there is a conflict to say, why are we doing this? And what is the right thing to be done? Not whether we like it or not whether we feel for it or not, but why it should be done. And it should be done only a certain way. I think that answers the question, right? And many a times it's a bitter pill to swallow for each of us, right? But there's a reason why we're doing what we're doing. And as long as we can keep the focus on that and put everything else to rest, I think over the years we've now learned the art of doing that. And at each point of time, slightly to use or borrow a phrase from our itihas, I would go back and say, what does Dharma say here, right? What is the righteous thing to do, and stick to that, and that puts an end to the conflict.
So there are disagreements at home. As you rightly mentioned, we do carry forward our work back home. Yeah. And from home, there are times when the chapters go back to office as well. And it's not easy to work together as husband and wife. Trust me, it's not easy. However, you need to keep your focus on. That's what we do, what we are looking forward to. I can't say I pull his hair every now and then. So
we say that way.
That way, both of you. I'll probably talk to Priya later on.
Yeah.
But there are challenges, there are disagreements. However, when we look at what the focus is, I think we mutually understand and exchange of ice cream and dosa helps each of
Helps.
us. Yes.
We're talking about how you guys manage conflict. So usually between the two of you, who gives in first?
I'll let him answer that question.
No, now you have to answer. Last time,
Well, it's not about giving up, it's about understanding. I'll be very candid. I remember my dad, he will always say, even now he tells me this, if amongst the two, one is at a higher pitch while during a discussion, the other should settle it down for some time. And I have followed that to the T. If I have to answer that question, I do follow that. So there are times I raise my voice, he keeps quiet, and then we get into a discussion, round table or square table, depends, but and vice versa as well. So it's about just stepping down a bit and then gradually coming
Work around
together and working out. That has been the motto, and it's been fairly good 15 plus years of us being together, and it's worked.
It's worked.
I think it worked for dad and mum, so it's working for us also.
Tried and tested formula.
Tried and tested format.
Earlier, I think we were talking about, when you were talking about the fundraising part of it, and you said it's very important to establish, showcase, and the work that you're doing. One thing that really stands out for us when we look at your campaigns, especially the online campaigns, the visual campaigns, is that they're very, very subtle. Unlike you are not loud, the way the images, the creatives, the text, you don't bombard them. It's very simple. Is that a conscious effort?
Yes.
It is, and I think a big chunk of our visual storytelling is handcrafted by you. So thanks to you for that, for being able to understand how we want to showcase the children we work with. We also have very consciously believed in less is more, right? If for those who've been following us on digital media, we possibly have the highest reach and engagement for what a non-profit or a for-purpose organization in the country today has. A few 100,000 people every day who engage on our platforms. So that's huge. But also the ability to be able to take a celebratory approach to storytelling. Right? When we coined the name Bal Utsav itself, it was very important that we take a celebratory approach, and that's pretty much been the culture of this land. Right? We have a celebration pretty much 365 days of the year, right? And this country has been solving serious problems, but taking a very celebratory approach to it, and that's amongst the ethos in which we built Bal Utsav. Also, the idea of celebrating childhood. Our childhoods were possibly amongst our happiest times, and to be able to keep hitting that over and over again, to be able to keep revisiting our childhood while solving complex problems has been the ethos, and that showcases in our communication, in words, in the imagery, in the way we speak out. And 15 years now, there's not a single image that would have ever gone out from any of our schools which shows a child with torn clothes looking deep into the camera and asking for support, right?
Correct.
While we operate at the scale we do, and we operate in multiple states now, in a couple of countries, what is evident is we very consciously said we will not do poverty selling. So there was a very clear idea of how we will inspire people to join problem solving and not sell them on poverty.
Makes it. So, let's talk a bit about the other side, other work that you do, with respect to POSH and sexual harassment. And from your experience, what are the challenges that you have encountered, or that maybe the corporates that you worked with would have encountered? What's a common problem?
Right. Mayur, when the law came into being, it certainly has been a ray of hope for women working in the corporate world specifically. And the law has also brought in a sense of seriousness for individuals who may want to take a bit of deviation from the work perspective. Now, for me as an individual working for the internal committees, being a consultant to now over 200 plus companies across the country in the last 10 plus years, I've learned a lot. I do remember prior to that, when I was in the corporate world, there were a lot of things that we couldn't even talk about. There was a law which we were not aware of, but 2013 has been a game changer for women specifically, because women are breaking the glass ceiling and they are there in the corporate world and they have the right to be there. It is with dignity they need to work. And no moral policing here. Internal committees are not there to moral police. But we are there as a group of people, individuals, who want to ensure that we bring in equality for everyone. And learnings for me as an external member is, yes, certainly when I started consulting companies, initially it was that people were shying away from bringing the perspective on ground, talking to their employees. Initially, yes, there was a bit of, that reluctance. Why should we talk to our employees? Are we really going to talk about sexual harassment at the workplace? If there is an issue, why don't women talk to the HR?
So, I just want to take a step back
Yes.
there. Let's define sexual harassment, because
Yeah.
there's no clarity in that
Yeah,
itself, right?
Yeah. So Mayur, you look really handsome in this white shirt today. Is this sexual harassment?
I might get, I don't know.
You look hot.
There, yes. I might take it in a good sense, but I might
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
See, it is about perspective. It is about that unwelcome remark. The law clearly states, if a woman feels uncomfortable with a certain gesture or a certain remark, you need to be reprimanded for it. And before you get reprimanded, why don't you mend your ways? You should know what to
What
say.
to say? True.
Do you really need to tell your colleague that you look hot? A beautiful word can also be used, right? We live in a world where, yes, hugging an individual is considered as a norm. There is no wrong in doing that. A handshake is not a bad thing.
But the intentions.
Actually, the intentions does not matter under this act.
Wow.
What
okay.
matters is the impact. So there is a very thin line which is drawn here.
But also, one is this. Then there is also this thing about discrimination between men and women in terms of promotions. Would that also fall under the same?
No, POSH does not talk about discrimination with respect to men and women. It is
In terms of promotion?
No, it does not.
It doesn't.
However, if there is a case of quid pro quo, which is favors, asking for favors directly or indirectly and creating a hostile environment, then yes,
Then
it does fall under the purview of POSH.
So now I see where you come from when you said there is this ambiguity in terms of what falls under. But in either case, it needs to be addressed.
It has to be addressed. And we need to educate our audience. This law is not only about women, actually it is about men. I'm not saying that men are always wrong. There are times when I've seen cases where women have sexually harassed men as well. And we need to fight for them. And trust me, sexual harassment does occur to men as well. And we all, in our fraternity of external members, we are talking to the government to make it a gender-neutral policy. Right now, it is only for women.
Correct.
And we would love to make it a gender-neutral policy because, as I said, men also do not talk about sexual harassment due to a certain taboo attached to it. They may walk out of it.
They may walk out,
They
yeah.
They may be able to handle it, but there are times when people can't.
And in fact, I've actually had conversations where men have said, no, I don't want, they've experienced that, but they have actually said, I don't want to talk about
Absolutely.
it. One could be with the taboo that you speak about. Second is somewhere also men feel that the law is not balanced. And then
I don't know, maybe I'm not using the right phrase, but they play the woman card.
Yeah.
And then, there's a lot of debate around that. But
Yes.
a lot of men also experience that.
A coin has two sides to it, certainly. Therefore, one should make this a gender neutral policy so that there is equality. And men can also talk about it if there is a case of sexual harassment. But the best part about is what I wanted to tell is that the companies are taking it very seriously. Though the law says it is only for women, but they do make it a gender neutral
Gender
policy.
neutral.
So they are opening up to the whole idea of talking about it. You can solve an issue the moment you start talking about it. You don't have to talk every day, but at least
Normalize it.
Normalize it.
Correct.
Normalize it.
And that, I feel, unfortunately, in our society, that's going to take a long time.
It will take a
It's
long
not
time.
going to be an easy journey at all.
Yes, it will take a long time. But as when I started talking, I said it's a ray of hope. It's a good first
start.
step. It's a good first step, and seeing a lot of positive sides that are coming in from companies are taking it upon themselves to ensure that women are safe beyond the law. They are going beyond the law. So they are educating individuals as well, and that makes it all the more, it's quite promising for women who want to work beyond 12 midnight as well. There should not be that demarcation.
That should not stop them. They should feel safe. They should feel that, okay, it's okay to be working late, or forget working late, even stepping out late. I've had friends who've gone to clubs and they're literally looking at the clock and saying, you know what, it's better that I get back home.
Yes.
Right? And across fraternity, not just the corporates, but across fields, now there are people who are voicing it, and there is a ray of hope, as you said. There's some change happening. People are sitting up and listening to it. Hopefully, we don't have to wait too long to normalize it.
Yeah. It's a behavioral change, and it will take time, but there is hope.
There is hope.
There is hope.
Awesome. So on that note, Ramesh, any parting thoughts from your side?
I think it's an exciting time for all of us to be around. There is a lot of young blood that's come in here into the sector. There's a whole bunch of people. The law has mandated CSR, so the corporates are willing to play an active role, either because it's mandated by the law or because they're just more socially conscious. There are problem solvers, a far more number of problem solvers now than what we had in the past. So it's definitely an exciting time. And if each of us shifts the gear and moves into an absolute problem solving mode where we say, hey, I'm taking up a problem, I hope to solve it in X amount of time. And we would like to exit the space after we solve the problem, right? If we can make that conscious choice, I think it's a great start point. And I welcome more people to come in here and join hands, because it's only together we're going to be able to solve this.
Binu?
Yeah, I'll just add one statement here is that we need more and more like-minded individuals coming together to solve a problem. There is no band-aid approach anymore. Enough of multiplying NGOs after NGOs. Let's look at a cause, work towards it, resolve it, and move on to the next. That is what we want to do.
Awesome. All right. Also, on that note, Ramesh and Binu, thanks a ton for joining us today and doing this. It means a lot to us. And for viewers, thanks for joining in. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you found this podcast today interesting. This is Mayur signing off.